So I want to talk about interviewing for jobs in software. So I've talked about in other content, the two sticking points of getting into software. The first being generating interviews, the second being getting offers out of those interviews. Very simple, but when you think about it, the whole process of getting a job in software, that's where the hangup is, those two places. So let's assume you're getting interviews. How do you do well in those interviews? And so I think, a lot of my advice here is, general and opinion driven and, maybe untested is the way to qualify the advice here. But I have opinions about it, and I've gotten into software, so maybe those opinions have some bearing. But there are a lot of other people in software who would probably have other advice, so maybe it doesn't. But I'm going to share my experience and opinion with you, and then you make up your own mind. So how I got into software, I interviewed 5, 6, 7 times, something like that. First round in person, so all in Kansas City, where I live, and the response from all of those was exactly the same. He does not have enough experience. I guess one of those interviews, the response was a little different. They said not enough experience, and he's not passionate about software. So basically the same message every time. And 5 to 6 interviews, I was very discouraged after that last interview that I got a rejection from. But really, that's not too many. My expectation nowadays, if I want to get a new job in software, 6 to 12 interviews is probably what it would take for me to get the right new role right now. And I think that's a reasonable expectation for someone to have to get into software. So all those interviews, I feel like I was kind of focusing in on proving I was a technical, not expert, but technically proficient enough to get a job in software. And that's kind of where my focus was. And, I try to be relaxed and I try to be personable. But I think my focus was on, oh my God, have I learned enough to get this job? And that was where my concern was, and that's where the focus of the interview was. So then the interview where I wound up getting an offer, and it was, for an internship. That's not what I was looking for, but they said, okay, we'll hire you as an intern. And, not highly paid. I think it was $10.50 an hour. And I think the guys at my boot camp had to negotiate for $10.50 an hour, because I think the original offer was for $8 an hour. And so thank you for that. We were able to live on it, cobbling some things together. Anyway, tangent. So that interview, it was the only technical interview I had, and so the emphasis was on, where is your technical ability a little bit more. But, maybe that's a good thing, because I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to how am I going to communicate my technical level to these guys, and then, is it enough? And so I had to do a fizz buzz challenge, and this was back in 2016, so I don't know that this is what you would see today. In fact, I have not seen those in recent interviews I've done. So a fizz buzz challenge, and then I think I had to do one other thing. There was some code that they had written, and there was a bug in it, and I had to fix it to get and I didn't get past it. I did the fizz buzz, that worked, and then the fixing the code thing, I got kind of close, but didn't get it. And so they understood, okay, this guy has done some programming, knows some things, has built some projects, and is not very good. Is pretty junior. And so they understood where my skill level was. But I got that job because I think at the end of the interview, well, let me back up a little bit. So I think that because it was a technical interview and they knew where I was technically, I was able to then, put some of the emphasis, the focus, when it was not part of the coding challenge and it was time to just talk. Instead of talking about technology, I talked about, my experience in the military, what I want to do, 5-year plan when they ask that question. Just kind of, here's who I am and why I'm a good fit for you, why you would benefit from having me working for you. Driven, eager, hungry, all those things that wouldn't have come out and didn't in those previous interviews if my focus and attention had been on the technical side, if that makes sense. So I think that helped, because the focus, when you don't know a whole lot, making the focus on technical stuff is bad. So at the end of the interview, something else that I think got me that offer was I could just feel it. I knew that this was the place I wanted to work. I mean, one, I was desperate. But then two, I had a feeling going into this company that I hadn't had it the previous ones, where I was like, this is the place I want to work. This is it. And so I said at the end of the interview, this is it. This is the job I want. And if you make an offer, I will accept. And I just saw and I've said this in other videos, I saw the owner of the company, small, independently owned, look at, the CTO type, engineering manager type, and they just, okay. And so then, after the meeting, they made an offer. And, I call that like the closer, my closer. So, I think if it feels right, then use that. Don't overuse it, but, it's an approach. And, I think that the more important takeaway is that, you can put the emphasis in the interview where you want it. They're going to have their own emphasis they're going to put on the interview, but you get to highlight the things you want to highlight. And, you have your own opportunity to make the interview about either you as a candidate, what you bring, or on the technical side. And, you can put it on the technical side, but I think at the end of the day, people hire people, and people hire people that they have a good feeling about, that they like. And so, you need to be personable, you need to be relaxed, you need to be yourself, and you need to show them your value add, not just from a technical side, but from, a culture fit, from, your value proposition as a candidate. So, soft skills, I guess would be one way to say it. But I don't think that covers everything about what I'm talking about. It's more than soft skills. It's you. That's all I got. Oh, no sound. So I have another video about this, pointing at my channel over there. It's on the other screen that you can't see. I recently got coffee with someone who got into software, within the last year, and he, very special individual, I think, but he got into software 2 months into his coding boot camp, and then he stopped doing it because he was in software. And I don't think that happens for everybody, and I don't think that is a reasonable expectation to set for yourself. But, our conversation did, kind of align with my advice here, because he said, people struggle to get into software, and they don't, they're doing that to themselves, because, it's not about all the technical stuff you have up here. It's about, selling yourself, about, creating opportunities to interview, to have conversations, and then capitalizing on those by being good at selling yourself, by, having enough energy and excitement about what you can bring, that other people get excited about you as well. And he had to do a coding challenge to get that first job. I think he's on like his third, because don't need to get into it, but to get that first job, he had to do a coding challenge, and it was in Vue and Node, and I have a video talking about that. But he had no experience in Vue or Node, and he was still able to get the code challenge even without experience in Vue or Node. So he did a great job selling himself, right? And he was able to complete the coding challenge even though he had no experience in Vue and Node. And that sends a pretty powerful message that I can learn stuff and I can do stuff, and I'm determined. There's a lot of messages that are sent when you maybe not a lot of messages, but strong messages about I'm capable and I know what I'm doing, and you won't regret hiring me. So now I think that's all I wanted to talk about.